This guy brings a bunch of gold pieces he has managed to gather to find out how much they're worth. The dealer first needs to verify that all of them are authentic, so he lightly scrapes each piece on a special chemical that reacts to gold. He starts with the bars and the larger pieces before moving on to the smaller jewelry items. Although individually each piece could fetch a higher price due to its design, the fastest and most efficient option is to sell them based on their weight and carat, since finding a buyer for each item would take too long. After confirming that all the pieces are genuine gold, he does the final calculations. And so, our guy manages to sell everything for over $239,000. A pretty good figure, though it could have been higher if the embedded pieces had been appraised separately. Still, all that's left is to hope the dealer gives him back the grams lost from scraping his gold so much. This guy has a 1 kilo gold bar, but he decides to grab some big tongs and snap it right in half. Then he puts the two pieces into a bowl, and with a blowtorch he melts them down until they turn completely liquid before pouring it into a longer, thinner mold. Once it's ready, he takes it out and cools it, and you can already see it's got some pretty heavy marks. Using a hammer, he hits it multiple times from every side, creating a kind of pattern to release any trapped air. Then with the blowtorch again, he heats it up once more and cools it again by dipping it in water. After that, he feeds it into a press machine, and after several passes, this time it comes out smooth, thin, and long. With a millimeter gauge, he makes sure the gold strip has the exact right thickness. He tapes one side of the gold strip, then uses a punch tool to cut out circles of gold. A lot of them. Once that's done, he ends up with what looks like a pile of gold coins, but it doesn't stop there. With a file, he carefully smooths down the edges and then weighs the coin, coming in at 37.5 grams. He opens a box filled with stamped dies, grabs the one with the Bitcoin symbol, places it onto a steel base, adds the gold coin, and with the press of a button, the machine stamps the coin, making it ready to be sold for even more value. This girl works as a gold carver and wants to find out how much money the gold dust scattered around her workshop is worth. So she vacuums up everything she can find, not leaving a single gram behind, removes the filter, and rinses it thoroughly with water until it's spotless. She then vacuums the now clean and damp gold again and pours it into a pan to dry it, taking the utmost care not to lose even a gram in the process. She cools the pan by running water over it before placing it on the scale, where she discovers it contains 4.42 ounces, or in other words, 125 grams of pure gold that had been wasted in her workshop. Since it's of the highest purity, those 125 grams are valued at approximately $7,600. This is probably the most expensive dirt she has ever found in her workshop. This guy wants to find out how much money the gold inside gold leaf paper is worth. To do that, he ordered 2 large bags of gold leaf paper. In case you didn't know, gold leaf paper is used in many foods, and its texture is very similar to plastic wrap. In fact, he proceeds to stretch it, and as you can see, it expands just like plastic. And no, it doesn't look like real gold, but could it be? To test it, he first burns it with a lighter, since real gold melts at around 2000 degrees, and a simple lighter shouldn't affect it. However, when heat is applied, it reacts quickly, shrinks, and easily gets damaged. A bad sign. The next step is to see how it reacts to the gold acid test. He applies acid to check for 14, 18, and 22 carats, but the gold paper doesn't react at all. Another bad sign. Then he tests it with an electronic gold tester he has in the office. When he places it on the tester, there's no signal, so he crumples it to increase its density, and when he tests it again, it gives a reading of 18 karat gold. So he takes a large amount of gold leaf with the goal of melting it down to see if there's any real gold in all that paper. He prepares it, sets it on fire for 5 minutes, and ends up with this. When he cools it with water, he notices that some of the supposed gold nuggets are floating, something gold would never do. When he pours them onto a sheet of paper, the nuggets disintegrate just by touching them. And honestly, with this and all the previous tests, it's clear that there's actually no gold at all in the gold leaf paper. This guy finds some strange gold sheets inside a bag of decorations, and even though at first glance they look like simple aluminum foil, he decides to take them to an expert because he suspects they might actually be worth something. As soon as the expert sees them, he's surprised by how incredibly thin they are, but quickly realizes he's not looking at just any decoration. Since these pieces appear to be Chinese lucky gold, to check if that's true, he decides to analyze them in a machine. The pieces turn out to be 24 karat gold. After discovering this, the expert places them on a scale to find out how much they really weigh, even though they look much bigger and give the impression they could weigh a lot. They actually only come in at 48 grams because they're extremely light. From there, he starts calculating how much money they're worth based on the current price of gold. He does the math, adjusts the value per gram, and reaches a number. These ultra-thin gold pieces are worth $6,384, and our guy is absolutely blown away. This guy shows up with a super weird machine, powered by a drill that sucks water out of this river like it's chocolate milk. After the machine does its thing, with a totally not suspicious cut, golden stones suddenly appear on the platform. He pulls out some tweezers like a magician and starts picking up one by one what look like insanely clean and shiny gold nuggets. Then he dumps them into a container, even though somehow there seems to be more gold than before. He adds some powdered borax, heats it up with a torch until the gold gets ridiculously hot, and once it's fully melted, he pours it into a mold. It cools down like when you're waiting forever for her to get out of the bathroom. Then he grabs it and puts it into a press, making it thinner and longer. Yeah, full blood team
team energy. With some weird tool, he bends it, although he definitely needs help from his good old hammer. And boom, now he's got a massive gold ring, supposedly. And that's why
this guy is crazy. He wants to melt down every gold piece of jewelry he's collected over the years and turn it into a single gold bar worth way more than the pieces themselves. First, he pours powdered borax into the furnace, which lowers the melting temperature of gold. Then he starts adding everything: earrings, necklaces, bracelets, rings. He keeps going until the container is completely full, waits for it to melt down, and once it starts liquefying, he even adds a little more. Over time, the gold melts like butter. He adds more borax again, and when it finally becomes pure liquid gold, it's time for the tricky part. Carefully, he pours it into a mold and leaves it there for hours so it can cool down. After a while, it's time to take it out. Using special tongs, he flips the mold over and the gold bar drops out on its own. Then he grabs it again and dips it into water to speed up the cooling process. As you can see, it still has some impurities, so he chips and even sands it to try to improve the finish, but it's still not perfect. Once it's ready, he scans it with a special machine that measures the purity of the melted gold. The result shows the gold is 73% pure, which is about 18 carats, and with this gold bar weighing around 1.5 kilos, its value would be about $180,000. This guy pours gold pieces worth $300,000 onto a scale, which he has been buying through his We Buy Gold business over the past few months. When he weighs all these gold pieces, they come in at 8 kilos and 600 grams. He places all the gold pieces in here with the intention of melting them down. Little by little, the gold turns red and begins to melt. Once it starts becoming liquid, he adds a bit of borax, a chemical used to clean gold and remove all the dirt that has built up over the years. Once it's ready, and being very careful, he pours it into this mold shaped like a gold bar and makes sure nothing is left inside the container, scraping all the remaining bits onto a metal plate. As the bar begins to cool down, he uses a small hammer, very gently, to remove the bluish layer of borax from the bar. Once everything is clean and ready, the gold bar ends up looking like this. He drills a few small holes in different spots to check its purity, and during this process he says he lost about 8 grams of gold. After a while, he receives the test results, which, unfortunately for him, confirm a gold purity of 55.8%, which is close to 12 carats. At a value of $28 per gram, this means his 8.592 kilogram gold bar is worth approximately $240,000 today. This guy decides to find out if the gold that sometimes appears as a prize in snack packages is actually real gold. To test it, he uses a blowtorch and melts the golden coin he finds inside an Oreo wrapper. After burning it for a while, the first thing that melts definitely doesn't look like gold. In fact, at first it looks like it's just melted plastic. Even so, he collects the burned leftovers and decides to keep melting them. After a while, the supposed gold inside the coin turns out to be ridiculously small. So small that it's almost impossible to properly measure the amount, which leads to the real question: how much do you think that tiny bit of gold is actually worth? At first glance, this bottle looks like a trinket, but beyond being a treasure, it hides a great story. In ancient times, men always carried it with them to hide gold coins or anything of value, since its small size allowed them to store it wherever they wanted. Inside, it could hold everything from seeds to the savings of an entire lifetime. It feels strange to think that back then people felt important simply for carrying something like this. But the truth is, it's a fascinating historical piece, and that's why